I'm Chris, and I'm going to take a few minutes here to talk about psychological safety and the reasons why it is the foundation of high performing teams. First, we're going to discuss why it matters. So, there's a lot of factors of why psychological safety matters. So, one is that burnout, stress, and mental health related sicknesses are on the rise. And we'll briefly discuss why that might be the case and why improving psychological safety will help improve those numbers. Also, engagement is a bit fragile at the moment, and actually we'll discuss the reasons why that might be, and actually how having a more psychologically safe team and how to build that into your teams and how that will improve engagement. Change is constant, so especially with the use of more technology, things moving quicker. These changes are happening more and more and more. In order for organizations to keep up with those changes, it's a psychologically safe team is more important than ever. And having teams that are silent, that are, have to go to their leaders for permission, that are very, will do as they're told, they're very yes, but actually won't speak up about mistakes. Teams that are quiet, teams that aren't having some conflict, actually that's really like costly at the moment. And actually it's really important that people are able to speak up about challenges, people are able to challenge ideas and highlight mistakes. And actually that's how these teams evolve and move quicker. So yeah, so organizations don't fail because people don't care. They often fail because people don't feel safe enough to speak up. So people can't challenge these things that aren't working. People can't raise things that maybe they don't know, and even to the basis point where actually people don't feel that like they belong in these organizations, and all those contribute to an unsafe organization, and all those increase those bits that we've already discussed about. So that those general sort of not feeling engaged, not able to highlight challenges. The lead is becoming a bottleneck, so everything needs to go to their leaders rather than actually teams having the confidence to trust to be able to work for these problems themselves. They have to go and ask for permission to move. So I guess the first thing is to go through what is psychological safety. So Amy Edmonds has done a lot of work on this, and her sort of line on this is it's a shared belief that a team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. So they're able to speak up, they're able to admit mistakes, they're able to ask questions, and they're able to challenge respectively. So going through the steps, the first kind of bit is, am I able to highlight that I don't know something? So I'm not sure how this works. I don't know how to do this. That's kind of your first steps. The second step might be to be able to give ideas, so to be able to share ideas with people, and yeah, to be able to share ideas and be able to take that kind of challenge if people don't like that idea, or if something might be wrong, so this ability to be able to share, but also be able to challenge things. That so that might be processes, that might be what other people do, there might even be behaviors. That having that kind of psychological safety to be able to challenge those things, and for people not to take it personally, but for you to challenge those ideas, those behaviors, those policies, not because you want to attack the person personally, but actually because the vision you're working towards, whatever's happening, is getting in the way of that. So yeah, the person's behavior, the policy, the procedure, all those things are getting in the way. So that's just a brief overview on what psychological safety is. What it isn't. So psychological safety isn't about being nice all the time. And actually, you'll probably find in a more psychologically safe team, there'll be more conflict, just because they know that conflict is part of it. So, with the five dysfunctions of a team, trust comes first, but after that, the next bit is conflict. Because actually, for people to be able to buy into your ideas, they have to be able to challenge it. They have, because if they don't challenge it, then actually they can't really buy into it. And if they don't buy into it, then they don't think they can be accountable. So yeah, you probably, if people are kind of being a bit more friendly, a bit nicer all the time, you'll probably find that they're actually an unsafe team because they don't have that psychological safety to be able to challenge, to be able to ask. They're more likely to be sort of yes, like yes, people just do what they say. I'm just doing my job. I don't want to work up kind of above and beyond that. They'll just be yeah, my boss has told me to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and that kind of leads on nicely to avoiding those difficult conversations. So again, psychologically safe team will be able to have those difficult conversations, and there's multiple ways people might do it, but actually it might be that that behavior, what you did there isn't helping us towards our vision. Or actually, it might be that I really value you as an individual, and actually, the way you behave made me feel like that, made me feel like this. And actually, it's not personal. It's just you might not realize that. Um, Lowering standards. So yeah, psychological safety doesn't lower standards, and actually, they're almost two separate bits. So and later on, we'll show you a table where actually what high safety, low standards looks like, but also what high standards, low safety looks like, and actually why having both of them is really important. And it doesn't remove accountability. So just it's not this kind of soft, fluffy thing where everyone's kind of hugging each other and it's all like nicey, and letting people kind of get away with things, and people don't need to come and work. It's actually important that people are still accountable. And actually, like the theme for this is actually just because you've got psychological safety doesn't mean that you're not having difficult conversations, doesn't mean you're not challenging people, doesn't mean that you're not keeping people accountable and responsible for their roles. But actually, it means that you're in an environment where people are used to being challenged, and people understand that when you're challenging them, you're not doing it in a personal way. You're doing it in a actually this whatever you're doing is getting in the way of us getting towards our vision. So yeah, as I said before, high safety, high standards equal excellence. And we'll just briefly show you a small table. So um, low safety, standards. If yeah, you can imagine how that what that might look like. You know, people not, I guess, a very sort of nice environment, probably quite chill. But actually, no one's being honest. No one's kind of working towards things, and actually, people are just a bit empathetic. Like they're just not really much sort of going on. Then you have the high standard, low anxiety. So the high standard, low safety, and that's going to make people anxious. You can kind of imagine, senior people coming in saying that these standards need to go up, and people not being able to raise those things. So there'll probably be lots of problems happening, lots of challenges going through. There'll be lots of people probably don't know what they're doing, and because they don't want to kind of raise that they don't know things, or they don't want to raise something's not working, or even share ideas. So it's probably this kind of, I guess, this model where this is how we've always done it, and if you're not following these sort of these policies and procedures, then actually you're the problem rather than the system's the problem. So you can kind of imagine that one. High safety, low standards. So yeah, a bit of a comfort zone. So people are raising things, people are challenging each other, but actually there's not a kind of set standard. And what you might find with teams of working that if you are a new leader in an environment, that actually you might spend some time in this kind of low standards, high safety to build that psychological safety up. And then actually you might find that you might start developing those standards when people start realizing actually you're here to get the best out of the teams, and you're here for us to work towards this vision. But maybe coming in this kind of high standards, low safety might make people quite anxious, but actually maybe coming in from a high safety, so make sure people understand that you want the best out of them because you believe getting the best out of them will help us towards the vision, and creating those sort of clear clear vision, clarity on role, clarity of why we're here, buy-in, not buy-in, yeah, a kind of a why we're here. And then as you start to develop, you then can sort of develop those higher standards once people feel safe. So yeah, this kind of comfort zone, and you can probably picture that everyone's happy, everyone's really enjoying work, and people are able to challenge each other. But actually, maybe we can raise those standards slightly higher to get the best out of people, because people generally want to do a good job. People think there's an interesting quite about like people, high performers don't quit because of burnout. They'll generally sort of quit because of the standards of everyone else. And actually, if you've got a team that wants to do really well, and you create that environment, people want high standards. So actually, having high safety and high standards is really important. So yeah, so there's a quite a famous study done by Google. So they looked at a load of teams to try and work out what makes a good team a great team, and the number one the indicator for if you have a high performing team is psychological safety. So that's the number one factor. So it's not to do with IQ, how clever people are. It's not to do with structure, and it's not to do with seniority. It's to do with yeah, it's to do with psychological safety. So if that's not a reason to kind of dive into psychological safety, understand how it works, understand how to build that within your team. I don't know what it is. So it's the number one predictor of high performing teams. And then we'll briefly go into the cost of silence. So the cost of people being unsafe and the cost of people not being able to escalate if that's they don't know something, if that's their wanting to share ideas, if that's them wanting to challenge how things are, you're going to get a number of things. So trust is going to erode, burnout's going to increase. So if people feel that things aren't working, but they can't raise those things, or they're stuck in this process where they've got to follow a process that's not working. They've got to follow a process that isn't work that it doesn't fit them. Then burnout and stress will increase because yeah, they're in an environment that's not working, and people want to do good work. People want to do great work, and actually they're stuck things where they're stuck in cycles where they can't get out, things aren't working, they can't escalate these concerns, they're not feeling listened to, they're not being valued, then they're going to get stressed and the burnout will increase. Innovation slows, so obviously then if people are in unsafe environments where they can't share ideas, they can't raise concerns, then things are going to stay the same and you're not able to try out new ideas, you're not able to ask questions, you're not able to share stories, share ideas, and with that then yeah, you don't get that space to try things, and errors will escalate. So errors are more likely to be pushed under because as part of the psychological safety, they're not able to raise, they don't know things, and they're probably less likely to raise errors, and especially those kind of small near misses, people won't raise those small near misses, so you'll get lots and lots of near misses, and lots of near misses will eventually become a miss and an error. And if they're small ones, people still might try and hide them, but actually they would like them might become big errors. Whereas actually in high psychological safety teams, people will highlight actually this happened, these mistakes happen. Actually, let's try and fix those things. And then by fixing the near misses, by fixing the things that have almost gone wrong, then actually you're able to prevent those huge misses. So your errors will escalate from near misses to small errors to bigger and bigger and bigger because you know people aren't listening, people aren't sharing ideas, people aren't escalating or challenging the ways things work. So silence is self-protection. So people will stay silent to protect themselves because they don't feel psychologically safe in those environments. So if you have a silent team or a very sort of friendly, I could call it like a friendly superficial team, where people aren't having those kind of challenging conversations, people aren't kind of keeping people to account, people are very friendly. People might ask how the weekend was, and you might have these meetings where someone might talk for a period of time, but no one's really challenging those ideas. Everyone's going, yes, that's great. But actually, there's not that kind of conflict. Um, then actually, that's a real sign that people don't feel psychologically safe, or people don't have the space to be able to raise concerns, raise ideas. So yeah, moments really, really matter for psychological safety. So it's how us as leaders, how we respond to things. So how do you respond to bad news? So if someone comes to you with a mistake, if someone's come to you um, with something that's not working, how do you respond? If someone comes to you with a mistake, do you respond with something like, "Oh, you should have known that. Have you not read the policy?" Like it's an extreme where they're an idiot, or they share across the if they're in if they're in a shared office, they might share that to a whole office, publicly humiliate people about why how did you not know this, and sharing those things and making people think actually I'm not going to bring you bad news again, and that's an extreme, from something that's really really big happened or something very small, how you respond to those bad news. Do we get quite emotional? um, do we get quite angry, or do we try and blame them rather than actually reflecting on us and on how we can improve those situations? um, so yeah, so handling bad news, how we handle disagreements, or how people challenge us as leaders. So if your team are challenging you, do you I guess an example would be they tell me that something's not working, and I just say I need you to do it because I'm the leader. Um, and this kind of, you need to trust me on this. Like I've done this before, or this is how we always do it, and stuff like that. So actually, or do you encourage, do you thank people for highlighting those things, and even highlight that actually it's difficult to challenge leaders. So I really appreciate you bringing that to me, and that's worked with us all. Let's try and run an experiment So yeah, this kind of thanking people for speaking up and thanking people for challenging your ideas. And even sharing when someone's challenged you and actually saying, yeah, that was right, and thanking them for that and kind of showing that to the team that, yeah, I was wrong, I made a mistake, and and yeah, thanking the individual for bringing that to my attention and rewarding that. So praising that in public, that's really important for psychologically safe team. And how you react to mistakes. So linked into that example, telling people that I made a mistake. I'm only human, but actually I made a mistake here, and this is what I did. So I highlighted it, um, and now I'm running experiments to try and fix that mistake, and highlighting that it's important that we raise those mistakes, so then we know about them, and we can work through them and improve them. So these real micro moments, and actually understand that you as a leader, how you respond to bad news, how you respond to disagreement, and how you react to mistakes. And a lot of that is kind of our own insecurities, I guess our own sort of leadership style. So they may look at people like controlling, people like keeping people safe, and people like um, telling people what they need to do. It's kind of our um, yeah, it's a very human part. So actually, maybe the responding to bad news is you want to try and control things, you want to keep your team safe, and understanding that. But actually, if those those ways of working, those human ways that you work, are actually getting in the way of people being able to raise concerns to you. Because when they raise things to you, you go back and you go back at them in a negative way, and then they're less likely to be rewarded for bringing that. Whereas if they're bringing this stuff to you, you want to reward them, so they keep on doing it. So you're building that psychological safety. But this isn't a you know you go away, you do this for a day, and then psychologically you suddenly get a psychologically safe team. This is very behavioral. This is stuff you need to do every day, building these habits where people are used to. And you'll know people, you'll know individuals, leaders. They won't even be in leaders position where you can go to them with something you're unsure. There'll be people all over. So from my like nursing background, there'll be individuals where you're on shift with them, and you will go to them to ask if you don't know something, because the way they respond to you, they'll want to help you, they'll want to share and support. Where you have people who aren't approachable, and you won't want to go to them. So those are just an example of psychologically safe individuals. And as leaders, it's harder for us to be psychologically safe, because there potentially could be repercussions, because we have responsibility. We may be interviewing them for their more senior role. So there's lots of things that make it more challenging. And actually for us, it's more important for us to focus on these micro habits, these micro moments, in order to build psychological safety for us as leaders. Yeah, so it's behavioral. It's not theory. It's not something you can watch a TED talk and then you'll suddenly become psychically safe. It's really behavioral. It's based on these micro moments, on how you react, how you respond to your team. So yeah, leadership drives this. So admitting mistakes, asking open questions, thanking challenges, and staying curious under pressure. So, and I've kind of discussed all this already. So yeah, it's really important that as leaders we make mistakes. It's really important that we ask questions. So instead of just telling people what to do, most of the conversation should probably be in a coaching way. So they've got a project that they're accountable for, um, and then you're asking how they're getting on, rather than telling them what they need to do. You're creating space for us to ask them, to help them grow. And when people challenge you on things, you thank them, you publicly praise them, and you always stay curious. Even when there's pressure, stay curious, get them to ask, and get them to challenge what we're doing. So those key behaviors will drive psychological safety. So yeah, so you need to model vulnerability before expect it. So it's more challenging for them to come to you with vulnerability as a leader. So you need to model that vulnerability before you expect it. And I think it'll probably be good for myself to do a little talk on vulnerability, because there are kind of scales, and we can be almost too vulnerable to a point where, yeah, it can be too vulnerable but there's a scale when we're not vulnerable enough. And I guess it's similar to the transactional transformational leadership style. Sometimes we can be too transactional, and sometimes we can be too transformational for those scenarios. So I think it's really important that we discuss vulnerability in a bit more detail. The language shift. So, if someone comes to you with a mistake, then it's, instead of saying, "Why did you do this?" It's more about, okay, what did we learn? What did we miss? And what support was needed? And us try and learn, try and reflect, and create that sort of I guess that learning culture where instead of blaming, instead of ridiculing people, it's instead of saying, why did you let this happen? You go on to, okay, what did we learn? What did we miss? And actually, what support is needed? And actually, how can we prevent this from happening again as a team? So, not just you're the leader, this is the problem, you need to fix this, but actually, as us as a team, how are we going to stop this in the future? What did we learn? What did we miss? And what support would be needed to stop this happening again in the future? Yeah, language sets the tone. So how the language you use, the way we yeah, the I guess the emotion behind those discussions really sets the tone on how psychologically safe people would feel. So in my last talk, we spoke about transactional transformational leadership styles. So I'll just briefly go through this because it's a really key point for psychological safety. So in a transactional leadership style, they're generally be compliant. So as a leader, you want people to be compliant. You want people, you tell them to do something and they just do it. You don't want any back chat, you don't want any challenges. You just want I'm the leader, you do what I say. You want permission seeking. So generally there's this kind of oversight. So you'll want oversight of anything. So if anyone's going to do something that's slightly off, you need them to ask you for permission, so you have that sort of oversight. And there's minimal risk, and there's times when this is really important. To emergencies, high risk, basically these high risk procedures. That's where you kind of want this transactional leadership style. So COVID's a good example. When COVID came in, it was very transactional. We just need to set these things up as quickly as possible. Transformational leadership style is about having a clear vision, and then leaders are coaching, supervising people in order for them to be able to work towards these things. So this is a lot of ownership. So a lot of, instead of the leaders kind of taking that ownership, it's about individuals in the team taking ownership over certain aspects, and then them being able to work through those challenges. So being able to experiment, learn, and work towards and develop themselves in order for them to be able to work towards the visions. So as you can probably see, a transformational leadership style, well, the psychological safety is vital for that those sort of work, and that's part of how you develop a transformational leadership is this trust and psychological safety, where transactional leadership style potentially needs less psychological safety. It's a bit more kind of trust. So in terms of they need to trust that the leader's doing the right thing and the policies procedures are correct, so they're more likely to go and do those things. But actually, this kind of psychological safety, this kind of risk taking for the team, that yeah, I'm going to share ideas. I'm going to say that if I don't know something, I'm going to challenge the kind of way we've done it before. That's really, really important in transformational leadership styles. Safety bridges gaps, yeah, different between transactional and transformational. So switching from a transactional to transformational leadership style is really difficult because the skills an individual's needs are different, but also the need for psychological safety is different. So yeah, one of the main factors between the two is transformational leadership style needs a lot of psychological safety. So barriers to psychological safety. I've briefly gone through some of these, but it's good to kind of recap. So hierarchy, um, it is a clear barrier to psychological safety. So if you're in a more senior position, people are generally less likely to be psychologically safe with you. So an example would be a CEO, a very senior leader. They're less likely to probably have people challenge them, and probably less likely to have people um, say that I don't know something, and for them to maybe share ideas with them. They're probably more likely to do that with people in similar sort of rank or grade as them, maybe kind of one or two up. But the higher people go, the less psychologically safe they're going to feel. And actually, as leaders, that's then our responsibility to create that psychologically safe environment in order for people to be able to challenge us. So it's almost we have to put more effort in that psychological safety. So fear of judgments, again, I've gone through this a little bit before already, but actually this fear of if I'm going to challenge something, if I'm going to say that I don't know something, am I going to be judged? And this is real interest difference between people taking that personally. So I'm challenging you not because I want it to be personal, but because I'm trying to get us to work towards our vision. And or I'm challenging that idea. So I'm challenging the idea, not the individual who made those ideas. And this kind of fear that I'm going to be seen as as a troublemaker, or seen as just being unkind, when actually in a psychologically safe environment there's this kind of, actually, I'm going to take that risk because I think it will help us work towards those things. past cultures. So, a line people might hear is, "This is how we've done it. This is what works, and this has always worked." And almost this is an interesting one about having sort of new generations coming through and almost trying to blame them for things not working. Where actually it might be the culture, it might be the kind of way they're working, this transactional leadership style, this unsafe leadership style. So where you've got high standards, low psychological safety, and then you get anxiety with that, and you can see how that anxiety and burnout can increase. Leadership inconsistency, so lack of leadership training. People, this is quite common in a lot of I guess service things where you've got someone who's good at a job. So an engineer, a mechanic might be a good mechanic, and now because of that, and nursing is a great example, and now because they're good at that aspect, they'll then go into a leadership role when actually they might not have any specific leadership training, and actually having a little bit of leadership training would be really helpful for them to understand the importance of creating that psychological safety and those high standards in order to build um, in order to build great performance and build a great thriving team. And time pressures, so people not creating those spaces or feel pressurized to be unable to create those spaces for teams to be able to have those conversations, to be able to speak up, to be able to challenge ideas. So yeah, time pressure is a big factor for preventing psychological safety. Yeah, so these are often historical patterns. So older ways of working would have generally be in a kind of transactional leadership style. So I'm the leader, you just need to do what I say. But actually, with things evolving, with having to be more agile, bit faster, this transformational leadership style works. And even with newer generations come through, like they're just used to having things quicker and used to wanting to move faster. Um, so yeah, so often these historical patterns can often get in the way of transformational leadership in order for people to be able to keep up with the fast moving paces. So accountability and safety together. So safety isn't avoiding performance conversations. So this is just an example of what a healthy and safety sounds like. So I value you, but this needs to be to improve. So I think you can do this. I have high expectations of you, but this is the standard that we want. So it's direct and respectful, and you're understanding that you want the best out of them, and you see their potential, but you just don't think that they're hitting that mark. So it's really important that those things come together. Again, it's hard to be able to have those conversations or have those conversations productively without that safety, without them understanding that you're not. It's not a personal thing. It's that you think they can do better, but also maybe the way that they're working isn't helping us towards that vision. So that includes challenging behaviors, and just standard that the way the work isn't good enough. But also, as a leader, understanding them, and maybe it's an opportunity to have those discussions to understand what are the barriers, and is there a way that we can help us get the best out of you. So yeah, we'll go through Timothy's four stages of safety. So inclusion, learner, contributor, and challenger. So these go up in stages. So the first one is inclusion. So people, do they feel accepted here? So it's a very basic one, but actually, are people feeling included? Are they being discriminated against? Are they not feeling part of the team for whatever reason? So the first one is, do people feel accepted? That's the first one. The one is the safety. So the next level of that is safe to ask. I don't know. So I don't know how to do something, or asking questions on how things work. This is the kind of next level. So the learner safety, and this encourages a growth mindset. The third one, sorry, is the contributor. So I'm confident enough to say this is my idea. So ownership grows here. So in terms of people feeling safe to be able to share those ideas. So this is my idea. I take sort of ownership over this and share that. And sometimes that could be quite unsettling for some people, like especially in an unsafe environment. So that's the next stage, so a contributor. And then the final stage is the challenger. So this is when they say safe to challenge, even like especially like processes, especially policies, but able to challenge that. I see this differently. I don't think this way of working is helping us towards the vision, and this drives this sort of transformational transformation. So that kind of is the fourth stage. So it'd be interesting for you to reflect on where you think you are in those stages. But um, yeah, and just your I guess as a leader, you're trying to get where people are challenging, getting to the challenger stage where they're challenging the processes, and then you as you them on their own, or you can support them through how do we get through those challenges. So this is kind of your for you to reflect. So some final reflections for the end. So if someone challenges you publicly, just have a think of what do you do? Do you defend? Do you defend yourself? So do you get defensive? Do you just close down the conversation and just say, no, we're not having this discussion here? Or do you get curious? Do you ask questions? Do you ask why they think that? Do you thank them? Do you praise them? Just have a little think about when maybe it's certain individuals kind of wind you up a little bit and they rub you up the wrong way and you defend or you shut them down. Or maybe there's some that you get curious with and you ask questions and ask why they brought that up and thank them. So obviously it's probably obvious, but from a psychologically safe environment, you want to try and move to that curious. So ask questions, thanking people for challenging you. So yeah, just a little have a little think about maybe a time when you didn't speak up, and why maybe you didn't. So, were you scared of looking incompetent? Did you not want to offend someone? Were you worried that you might be labelled as difficult, or were you worried that it might have an effect on your career? So these are all some examples of psychological safety in action, and even like it's psychological itself, but even highlighting that actually, you know, this time I didn't feel like I could speak because of these things. I'm worried about my career. I'm worried about being labelled as someone who's difficult, or I didn't want to offend that person. I didn't want them to think for them to take it personally, but actually for them, but I felt that that was getting in the way of where we're trying to get to, and having those conversations. Um, it's really hard, especially if you're in that unsafe environment. But taking those small steps is really, really important. So just a quick kind of summary for five actions we can take away. So as leaders, model vulnerability. And again, like I said, I'll do another talk on vulnerability because sometimes you can be too vulnerable, um, and sometimes you're not vulnerable enough. So model vulnerability. Invite input. So when you're sharing ideas, invite input to come in. Invite people to challenge you. Invite people to say I don't know, and invite people to bring their own ideas. To reward people when they're honest. So when they're challenging you honestly, when they're giving honest feedback, when they're having conflicts with themselves, with the team and with yourself, make sure that's rewarded. Address incivility and behaviours issues quickly. So if people are being uncivil, then actually you're not going to have a psychologically safe environment because people will try and share ideas and people will be kind to them. So addressing incivility is really important when trying to create a psychologically safe team. And as I've said a few times now, you need to try and separate the person from the problem. So when they're bringing something, when they're bringing a challenge, when they're bringing kind of conflict, and when they're bringing their own ideas, you need to separate them from the problem and understand that people are bringing those things because they want to try and work towards the vision. So it's really important that we separate the person from the problem. Reflection. So for in your organizations, just have a little think. Are people asking for permission or are they taking ownership? And that's a key indicator of how psychologically safe teams feel. So yeah, are they ask permission or are they taking ownership? And have a little think for yourself how that works in your organization. So final reflections. So psychological safety is not soft, it's a performance driver, it's a retention strategy, it's a well-being enhancer, and it's a leadership's responsibility. So quick reflection, just finishing up. Um, what's one behavior that you think you can change this week? So have a little think about one behavior that you could change this week that can make your teams feel more psychologically safe. Um, Thank you for listening. I hope you found it helpful. Yeah.